I need to write this down. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone will understand why I can't leave, even though every rational part of my brain is screaming at me to run and never look back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, back when I thought the worst thing that could happen to me had already happened. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 28 years old, and 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my 2004 Honda Civic in a Walmart parking lot outside of Portland, Oregon. That's what rock bottom looked like for me. Not the sleeping in my car part, though that sucked, but the why. I'd been a software developer at a promising startup, the kind where they have kombucha on tap, and everyone's got equity that will definitely be worth millions after the IPO. Except there was no IPO. There was an indictment. Turns out our CEO had been cooking the books, and when the whole house of cards collapsed, it buried all of us under it. I wasn't charged with anything. I was just a code monkey, not privy to the financial fraud. But I was suddenly unemployed in an expensive city with $47,000 in student loans, $8,000 in credit card debt, and a rent of $1,850 a month for a studio apartment I could no longer afford. My girlfriend Jen left 2 weeks after I lost my job. Not because I was broke, she said, but because I'd changed. She was right. I had changed. Desperation does that. I lasted 4 months burning through my savings, applying to hundreds of jobs, getting ghosted by recruiters, working gig economy bullshit that barely paid for gas. When my landlord finally gave me the official eviction notice, I packed what I could fit in my car and just drove. No plan, no prospects, just driving east, away from the city that had chewed me up and spit me out. The car started making a grinding noise somewhere around Hood River. A mechanic quoted me $200 for the repair. I had $340 in my checking account. That's when I saw the poster. I'd pulled into a truck stop to use the bathroom and maybe shoplift a protein bar. Yeah, I'd gotten to that point when I noticed the bulletin board by the entrance. The usual stuff. Somebody selling a bass boat, a church fundraiser, a missing cat named Mr. Whiskers, and one poster that stood out because it was printed on expensive-looking cream-colored paper with an official government logo at the top. Columbia Wilderness Preserve Park Ranger position, available immediate hiring requirements, valid driver's license, physical fitness, ability to work night shifts, compensation, $40 to $800 month plus housing, utilities, and meals provided. Duration, minimum 6-month commitment required. There was a phone number at the bottom, no website, no email, just a phone number. $4,800 a month, plus free housing, for a ranger position that didn't require any certifications or previous experience. Every alarm bell in my head went off. It was too good to be true, which meant it definitely wasn't true. It was probably a scam, or a drug front, or some kind of weird militia thing. I should have walked away. Instead, I took a photo of the poster and called the number. A man answered on the first ring. Columbia Wilderness Preserve, Ranger Station 7. His voice was rough, like gravel being sorted. Old, very old. Hi, I'm calling about the ranger position. I tried to sound professional, which was difficult given that I was standing in a truck stop bathroom hallway and hadn't showered in 3 days. You able to start immediately? No pleasantries, no interview questions, just that. Yes, I can start immediately. You have a vehicle? Yes. Good. Can you be here by sunset, today? I glanced at my phone. It was 2:17 p.m. I don't know where here is. He gave me directions. Not an address, directions. Take Highway 35 north for 40 miles. Turn left at the unmarked logging road after mile marker 127. Follow it for 6 miles until you reach the gate. He described landmarks, a boulder shaped like a crouching bear, a dead Douglas fir with 3 trunks, a creek crossing where the bridge was painted yellow. Wait, I said, don't you want to interview me? Check my references? You're desperate. It wasn't a question. Desperate people are reliable. They don't ask too many questions, and they do what they're told. Be here by sunset. The gate code is 1847. He hung up. I stood there in that truck stop, phone in hand, every instinct telling me this was insane. Sunset was in about 4 hours. I'd be driving into the middle of nowhere to meet a stranger who just told me he was hiring me because I was desperate. This was how people ended up in true crime documentaries. But $4,800 a month. Free housing, and my car was literally dying. I bought a Red Bull with the last of my cash and started driving north. The drive took every bit of those 4 hours. Highway 35 was easy enough, cutting through the Columbia River Gorge with its postcard-perfect views of forest and cliff faces. But finding the unmarked logging road was harder than the old man had made it sound. I drove past mile marker 127 twice before I spotted what might have been a road, more like 2 tire ruts cutting into the undergrowth, half hidden behind salal bushes. The Honda bottomed out twice on the first mile. The grinding noise got worse. I nearly turned back 3 times, but the thought of spending another night in my car, parked behind another Walmart, kept me going. He'd been right about the landmarks though. The boulder really did look like a crouching bear if you squinted. The 3-trunked Douglas fir was impossible to miss, a freak of nature towering over the road like a skeletal hand. The yellow bridge was so faded it was almost white, spanning a creek that ran dark and fast with snowmelt. The forest closed in on both sides as I drove deeper. Old growth. The kind of trees that had been here since before there was a United States, before there was a Oregon, maybe before there were people at all. Western red cedar and Douglas fir that were 10, 15 feet thick at the base, blocking out so much light that the forest floor was a carpet of brown needles and shadow. It was beautiful. It was also deeply unsettling in a way I couldn't articulate. Too quiet, maybe. I had my windows down because the AC was broken, but I couldn't hear any birds. No insects, just the labored grinding of my car and the whisper of wind through branches hundreds of feet above. The gate appeared exactly where he said it would be, at the end of the 6th mile. Heavy-duty chain link, 12 feet tall, topped with barbed wire. A sign wired to the gate read, Columbia Wilderness Preserve, authorized personnel only. I punched in the code, 1847, and the gate buzzed and clicked. I drove through, and it automatically swung shut behind me with a clang that sounded far too final. Another mile of winding road brought me to a clearing where 3 buildings stood. A large lodge-style structure that had to be the main ranger station, a smaller cabin about 50 yards away, and a storage building or garage. Solar panels covered one roof. A newish-looking truck was parked near the main building, and an older Jeep sat by the cabin. I parked my dying Honda next to the truck and got out. The air hit me first, so clean it almost hurt to breathe after months in the city. Pine and cedar and something else, something green and alive and ancient. The temperature had dropped with the sun. My breath misted. The main building's door opened before I could knock. The man who emerged matched his voice. Old, weathered, hard. He might have been 60 or 80, impossible to tell. His face was all angles and sun damage, deep creases around eyes that were an unsettling pale grey. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with the kind of wiry build that came from decades of physical labor. He wore a ranger's uniform that looked military precise, every button aligned, every crease sharp. Marcus Chen. Again, not a question. Yes, sir. I'm Ranger Hayward. I run this station. He looked past me at my car, and something that might have been pity crossed his face. That going to make it another week? Honestly, probably not. Honest, good. He gestured toward the main building. Come inside. We need to go over some things before dark. I followed him into the ranger station. The interior was exactly what you'd expect. Topographical maps covering the walls, a large desk with multiple monitors showing what looked like trail cameras, filing cabinets, a kitchenette, A wood stove radiating heat. Everything clean and organized. Everything except the wall directly opposite the entrance. That wall was covered in papers. Dozens of them. Missing person flyers, faded newspaper clippings, handwritten notes. In the center, someone had written in large block letters on a piece of poster board, "Remember them." Hayward saw me staring. "Something to discuss later. Sit." I sat, in the chair across from his desk. He remained standing, arms crossed, studying me with those pale grey eyes. "The job is simple," he said. "You patrol assigned trails at assigned times. You check in at designated checkpoints. You maintain the backcountry shelters. You document anything unusual in the logbook. You follow the rules." "What kind of unusual things?" "Wildlife behavior, trail damage, lost hikers." He paused. "Other things." The way he said "other things" made my skin prickle. "The pay is $4,800 a month, direct deposit. You live in the cabin, that's included, plus utilities and a food stipend. You work 6 nights a week, sunset to sunrise. 1 day off, usually Sunday. Minimum commitment is 6 months. If you leave before that, you forfeit your final month's pay. 6 months, night shifts, in the middle of the wilderness, alone except for this unsettling old man. "Why nights?" I asked. "Because that's when the work needs to be done." He opened a desk drawer and pulled out a laminated sheet of paper. "These are the rules. They are not suggestions. They are not guidelines. They are requirements for your survival." That word hung in the air. Survival. Not employment or success or safety. Survival. He placed the laminated sheet on the desk between us, rotating it so I could read. The header said, "Columbia Wilderness Preserve, Ranger Protocols, Mandatory Compliance." Below that, 15 numbered rules in small precise type. 1. Never acknowledge the hikers on Trail 7 after sunset. If they speak to you, continue walking. Do not make eye contact. 2. If you find cairns, stacked stones, that were not present on your previous patrol, dismantle them immediately and scatter the stones at least 100 yards apart. 3. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., exactly 4 candles must remain lit in the ranger station. White candles only. If one goes out, relight it immediately. 4. Never follow the crying child's voice into the forest. There are no children in the preserve. 5. If you encounter someone who asks, "Am I still on the trail?" you must answer exactly. "For tonight, yes." No other response is acceptable. 6. At each trail marker, verify the tree line count matches the number posted. If there is a discrepancy, report immediately via radio. Do not investigate yourself. 7. Do not enter the old growth section, marked on map, during a new moon. If already there when the moon phase changes, proceed immediately to Summit Point and wait until dawn. 8. If your radio produces only static at a checkpoint where it previously worked, leave the area immediately and do not return for 24 hours. 9. Never tell anyone your real name while in the preserve after dark. Use only your surname and rank. 10. The lake reflections must match reality. If you observe discrepancies, wrong number of trees, wrong season, people who are not there, do not look at the water again and leave the area. 11. Ignore all trail markers written in red. Follow only official green markers. Red. Markers lead nowhere you want to go. 12. If you see your vehicle in 2 locations, neither one is safe. Return to the ranger station on foot immediately. 13. Feed the offering box at Summit Point every 3 days. Use only the provided materials. Never look inside the box. 14. Do not respond to knocking on the ranger station door between midnight and 3:00 a.m. Do not look to see who is knocking. Remain at your desk with your back to the door. 15. If the forest goes completely silent, no wind, no animals, no sound, Speak the words on the laminated card in your pocket immediately and clearly. I read through the list 3 times, then a 4th. My hands had started shaking somewhere around rule number 4. What the fuck is this? The profanity slipped out before I could stop it. Hayward's expression didn't change. Those are the rules. This is insane. Crying children. People who aren't there. What is this place really? A wilderness preserve. Approximately 47,000 acres of protected forest in the Cascade Range. He said it like he was reading from a brochure. It's also a thin place. A thin place. Somewhere the boundaries are not as solid as they should be. Between here and there. Now and then. What is and what was. He leaned forward, palms flat on the desk. I don't expect you to believe me. I don't need you to believe me. I need you to follow the rules. Previous rangers who followed the rules survived their contracts and left. Previous rangers who did not follow the rules, he gestured at the wall of missing persons, are remembered. My mouth had gone completely dry. I should have stood up, should have walked out, driven away, slept in my car, figured out literally anything else. If I say no, then you leave now, before dark, and we never had this conversation. He straightened. But your car won't make it 20 miles. You have $340 in your bank account, and you've got nowhere else to go. He checked. Of course he checked. Probably ran a full background check before I even arrived. I looked at the rules again. At the wall of missing persons. At Hayward's impassive face. At the contract he'd produced from another drawer, already filled out with my information, just waiting for a signature. The cabin is stocked with basics, he said. There's a detailed map, a radio, a mag light, extra batteries, and a go bag with emergency supplies. Your first patrol starts at 8 p.m. tonight. I'll accompany you to familiarize you with the trails and checkpoints. After tonight, you're on your own. And if something happens, if I need help, radio for me. I monitor channel 7 continuously. He slid the contract across the desk with a pen. But Marcus, understand this. There are some things I can help with and some things I cannot. The rules exist because the latter category is much larger than the former. The pen felt heavy in my hand. My signature looked shaky and wrong. Hayward countersigned, then handed me a copy of the contract, the laminated rule sheet, and a second smaller laminated card with words I didn't recognize. They looked vaguely Native American, but I wasn't sure. Pronunciation guide is on the back, he said, noticing my confusion. Practice it. You'll need to say it perfectly if the time comes. What does it mean? Roughly translated, I am passing through. I mean no harm. I honor the old agreements. He collected the papers from his desk. The forest predates us by thousands of years. We are visitors here, Marcus. Unwelcome visitors, merely tolerated because of certain arrangements. The rules maintain those arrangements. He stood, indicating the conversation was over. Get settled in the cabin, eat something, be back here at 7:45 p.m. Wear layers, it drops below freezing after midnight. And Marcus, he fixed me with those pale grey eyes. When you see something that doesn't make sense, that can't be real, that violates everything you know about the world, remember that the world is much stranger than you were taught. Remember that your understanding is not required, only your compliance. The cabin was small but well maintained. One room with a bed, a desk, a wood stove, a mini fridge, and a bathroom barely large enough to turn around in. But it was warm, it was dry, and it was mine. For the first time in 2 months, I had a door I could lock, a bed with clean sheets, a roof that didn't leak. I should have been relieved. Instead, I sat on the bed with the laminated rule sheet in my hands, reading it over and over, trying to find the logic, trying to convince myself this was some kind of hazing, a way to fuck with the new guy. But Hayward hadn't been joking. I'd worked enough jobs to recognize the difference between someone busting your balls and someone delivering information you needed to survive. There are no children in the preserve. I pulled out my phone to Google some of this. Columbia Wilderness Preserve, or Thin Places, or Trail 7 Oregon, but there was no signal. Not even one bar. I'd known there probably wouldn't be, this deep in the forest, but the confirmation still sent a spike of anxiety through my chest. No phone, no internet, no way to contact anyone except the radio. I was completely isolated. The food in the cabin was basic. Canned goods, rice, pasta, peanut butter, protein bars. I made myself eat a protein bar and an apple I found in the fridge, though my stomach was clenched too tight to really want food. I changed into warmer clothes, thermal underwear, jeans, 2 shirts, a fleece jacket. Found the boots they'd left for me, exactly my size. They fit perfectly, which should have been convenient, but instead felt like more proof that Hayward had known I was coming, had prepared for me specifically. Why me? Out of all the desperate people in the world, why had that poster been there exactly when I needed it? I pushed the thought away. I was overthinking. I was lucky. Weird, creepy, unsettling luck, but luck, nonetheless. At 7:30 p.m., I practiced the words on the smaller laminated card, using the pronunciation guide on the back. Ne kwalish ne kane wat kane hemkan mukamuk nika hiyu. I repeated it 20 times until I could say it smoothly, even though I had no idea what circumstances would require me to speak it. If the forest goes completely silent, at 7:45 p.m., I walked back to the ranger station. The sun had set, but deep purple twilight still clung to the sky. The temperature had dropped at least 20 degrees. My breath came in white clouds. Hayward was waiting outside the main building with 2 packs, 2 radios, and 2 heavy-duty mag lights. He'd added a jacket to his uniform, but otherwise looked exactly the same. Unmoved by the cold, unmoved by anything. "You practiced the words?" he asked. "Yes." "Let's hear it." I repeated the phrase. He listened, nodded once. "Good enough. Here." He handed me one of the packs. Water, first aid, emergency blanket, flares, backup batteries, compass. "Radio is already on channel 7. Test it." I pressed the call button. "Testing, 1, 2, 3. His radio crackled immediately with my voice. He keyed his own. "Receiving you clearly. Remember, if you get static where you shouldn't, leave immediately." "Rule 8, I confirmed. "You memorized them." "Most of them." "Not good enough. You need to know them perfectly. Your life may depend on knowing them perfectly." He started walking toward a trailhead I hadn't noticed before, marked with a green painted blaze on a tree. "Tonight you'll learn the trails and checkpoints. Tomorrow night you're on your own. Tonight, observe and ask questions. And Marcus, if I tell you to do something, do it immediately, without question. Clear?" Clear. We entered the forest. The difference was immediate and profound. Under the canopy of those massive old-growth trees, full dark had already fallen. Our maglights cut narrow tunnels through blackness, so complete it felt solid. The trees, cedar, Douglas fir, hemlock, rose like pillars in a cathedral dedicated to something that had never heard of God. "This is Trail 3, Hayward said, his voice lower than before, like he was in that cathedral and didn't want to disturb the service. 2 miles to the first checkpoint. You'll check for trail damage, verify the marker tree counts, and sign the logbook in the shelter. Every trail has a backcountry shelter at roughly the midpoint. They're there for hikers, but also for rangers. If something goes wrong, get to a shelter." What could go wrong? He didn't answer, just kept walking. The forest at night was not silent. I heard wind moving through the high branches, the distant sound of running water, the creak and groan of wood. Once, something large moved through the underbrush off to our left, crashing away as we approached. Elk, probably, or bear, or something else. "How long have you worked here?" I asked, partly because I wanted an information and partly because the silence was becoming oppressive. 23 years. "And you've seen things?" "Yes." "Like what?" Like things that made me believe in the rules. He stopped at a trail marker, a green painted blaze on a tree and a small metal plaque with the number 3A. Count the trees in the immediate vicinity. The number should match the plaque. I swept my light around. How immediate? What's the radius? Approximately 20 feet. Count only trees 6 inches or greater in diameter. I counted. It took 2 tries, walking in a circle around the marker, but I reached the same number both times. 17. The plaque read, 17. Okay, I said. So what if it doesn't match? Then something has changed. A tree has appeared or disappeared. Both are bad. You radio me immediately and leave the area. Trees don't just appear or disappear. Hayward looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Here they do. Come on. We continued. 20 minutes deeper into the forest, we reached the shelter, a 3-sided wooden structure with a covered roof, a fire pit, and a metal box bolted to the back wall. Hayward opened the box and pulled out a water-stained logbook. You sign, date, time, and note any anomalies. He showed me the previous entries, different handwriting, different dates. The most recent was from 3 days ago, 9:14, 11:47 p.m. Ranger Hayward, Trail 3 checkpoint, no anomalies. I added my own entry, the pen barely working in the cold. 9:17, 8:34 p.m. Ranger Chen, Trail 3 checkpoint, no anomalies. Good, we'll hit 2 more checkpoints tonight, then return. Tomorrow you'll do a full patrol, all 6 trails, all 6 checkpoints, returning before dawn. Estimated time, 9 to 10 hours. 9 to 10 hours alone in this forest. Every night, for 6 months. I swallowed hard and nodded. We left the shelter and continued deeper into Trail 3. The trees grew larger, older. My light couldn't reach their tops. They disappeared into darkness hundreds of feet above. The undergrowth thinned out, blocked by the dense canopy. We walked through a world of massive trunks and empty space, our footsteps muffled by centuries of fallen needles. Rule 7, Hayward said suddenly. The old growth section. Do you know what phase the moon is now? I realized I had no idea. No. Waxing crescent, 5 days from new. You need to track the moon phases. There's a calendar in your cabin. The old growth is marked on your map. You're not to enter it during a new moon. If you're already inside when the phase changes, get to Summit Point and wait for dawn. What happens if I don't? You join the others on the wall. The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. We walked in silence for another 10 minutes. Then Hayward stopped abruptly, holding up a hand. Listen, he whispered. I stopped. Listened. At first I heard nothing unusual, just the ambient sounds of the forest. Then I realized those sounds were wrong. The wind had stopped. The distant water sounds had ceased. Even the creak of the trees had gone quiet. Complete silence. My heart started hammering. Rule 15. If the forest goes completely silent, say the words, Hayward ordered. Now. I fumbled for the laminated card in my pocket, but Hayward grabbed my wrist. You should have them memorized. Say them. Now. My mouth was dry. My mind went blank. Then muscle memory from my earlier practice kicked in. Ne kwa lisham neka, ne watka, ne hemkon, mukamuk ne ka hiyu. My voice sounded too loud in the silence, shaky and uncertain. Nothing happened. Then slowly the sounds returned. Wind first, then water, then the settling creaks of the massive trees. The oppressive weight I hadn't even noticed until it lifted suddenly released. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I gasped, doubling over. What the fuck was that? That was something paying attention to us. Hayward's voice was steady, but even in the dim light, I could see his jaw was clenched. The words reminded of the agreements. Most of the time, that's enough. Most of the time? We're still alive, aren't we? Come on, we need to finish the patrol. He started walking again. I followed, legs shaking, the laminated rule sheet burning like a hot coal in my pocket. This was my first night. I had 6 months of this ahead of me. We completed 2 more checkpoints on Trail 3 without incident. Each time I counted trees, they matched. Each time I signed the logbook with increasingly steady hands. Each time I looked over my shoulder into the darkness and saw nothing but trees and shadow. But I felt something, a presence maybe, an awareness, like the forest itself was watching, waiting to see what I would do. By the time we returned to the ranger station, it was nearly midnight. My legs ached from the hiking, my eyes burned from the darkness and constant vigilance, and my nerves were frayed to threads. Haywood went immediately to the desk and lit 4 white candles in holders that were clearly meant for this specific purpose. I checked my watch, 11:52 p.m. Rule 3, I said. 4 candles between 2 and 4 a.m. Correct. They need to be lit before 2 a.m. and they must stay lit until 4 a.m. I'll handle it tonight and tomorrow night, but after that, it's your responsibility. If one goes out, relight it immediately. Not in a minute. Not after you finish whatever you're doing. Immediately. What happens if they go out? Haywood pulled out a worn leather journal from a locked drawer. He flipped through pages covered in different handwriting, different dates, some entries decades old. He found what he was looking for and turned the journal toward me. The entry was dated March 15th, 1998. The handwriting was jagged, barely controlled. 3:17 a.m. Candle went out. Took me maybe 2 minutes to relight it. Thought it would be fine. It wasn't fine. Something came to the door. Not knocking like the rule says to ignore. Something else. Scratching. Then prying. Then the door started to open even though it was locked. Even though I was holding it shut. Haywood arrived, thank God, and relit the candle and it stopped. The door was warped, splintered, claw marks on the outside, 3 parallel gouges deep into the wood. Replaced the door the next day. We'll never let the candles go out again. Below the entry, someone had written in different ink, Ranger Morrison, transferred April 1998, completed contract, survived. I looked at the ranger station door. It was new looking, solid metal, not wood, industrial. How many doors have you replaced? I asked quietly. 3. Haywood closed the journal. The current one is steel reinforced. It's held so far. Go get some rest. You're on your own tomorrow night. Full patrol, all 6 trails. I'll wake you at 6:40 p.m. You're not coming with me. You need to learn to work alone. I'll be monitoring the radio. If you need help, call. But Marcus, some situations I can help with. Others, you're on your own regardless. Learn the difference quickly. I walked back to the cabin in the dark, too tired to be as frightened as I should have been. The forest sound seemed normal now. Wind, distant water, the occasional animal call. I could see stars through breaks in the canopy, more stars than I'd ever seen in the city. So many they looked like clouds of light, beautiful and terrifying. I fell asleep, still wearing most of my clothes, too exhausted to even take off my boots. Night 2. Haywood woke me at 6 p.m. by pounding on the cabin door. I jolted awake, disoriented, my body aching from yesterday's hike. It took me a moment to remember where I was. 30 minutes, Haywood called through the door. Eat something. Full patrol tonight. I forced down peanut butter on bread and a protein bar, drank a full liter of water and suited up. Thermal layers, jeans, fleece, the boots that fit too perfectly. I added the pack, the radio, the mag light, the laminated rule sheet, and the card with the words I'd now memorized but still carried as a security blanket. At the ranger station, Haywood had a detailed map spread across the desk. He'd marked 6 trails in different colored highlighter, trails 1 through 6. Each had a checkpoint shelter marked halfway along its length. Trail 7 isn't marked, I noticed, because you don't patrol Trail 7. Rule 1. Never acknowledge the hikers on Trail 7 after sunset. That trail is not your responsibility. But it exists? Yes. He pointed to a section of map he deliberately not highlighted. There, 3 miles long, ends at an old lookout tower. Used to be a popular day hike. Not anymore. What happened? People stopped coming back. He tapped the map. You patrol trails 1 through 6. That's approximately 22 miles total. 6 checkpoints, estimated 9 to 10 hours. You sign every logbook, count every tree marker, note any anomalies. Summit point is here. He indicated a peak at the center of the preserve. You'll pass it on trail 4. That's where the offering box is. Rule 13, feed it every 3 days. Today is day 3. There's a package in your bag with the materials. I checked my pack. Sure enough, there was a paper-wrapped package about the size of a shoebox, surprisingly heavy. What's in it? Doesn't matter. Just put it in the box. Don't look inside the box. What's in the box? Hayward's pale grey eyes fixed on me. Nothing you want to see. Previous offerings, I suspect. Maybe other things. Point is, don't look. Put the package in, close the lid, walk away. I nodded slowly, adding mysterious offering box to the growing list of nightmare fuel. One more thing. Hayward pulled out another laminated card, this one with a simple phrase, for tonight, yes. Rule 5. If someone asks if they're still on the trail, this is your only acceptable answer. Exactly these words, exactly this phrasing. Not yes, not I think so, not the trail is that way. This phrase, verbatim. Why? Because anything else gives them permission to follow you, or permission to stay, or permission for other things. This specific phrase maintains boundaries. What are they? Lost hikers, or what's left of them, or what's pretending to be them? He folded a map and handed it to me. You're wasting moonlight. Go. I went. Trail 1 started on the eastern edge of the preserve, cutting through second growth forest that was merely 80 or 90 years old instead of ancient. My maglight illuminated Douglas fir and western hemlock, salal and Oregon grape undergrowth, a clear trail marked with green blazes every 100 yards. The forest sounds were active tonight. Wind, animals, the creak of wood. Normal. I focused on that normalcy, on the familiar rhythm of hiking, on the mechanical task of following the trail. The first checkpoint came at mile 1.7. I counted trees at marker 1A, 12. The plaque read 12. I signed a logbook in the shelter, noting the time, 8:34 p.m. No anomalies. Back on the trail, I made good time. The exercise felt good after months of inactivity, my body remembering what it was like to be strong and capable. By the time I finished Trail 1 and started Trail 2, I'd almost convinced myself this was a normal job. Weird rules, sure, but maybe just local superstition. Hazing. Then I found a cairn. It was on Trail 2, about half a mile from the trailhead. A stack of stones, carefully balanced, maybe 3 feet tall. It sat just off the trail, visible in my light. The stones ranging from fist-sized to basketball-sized. Rule 2. If you find cairns that were not present on your previous patrol, dismantle them immediately and scatter the stones at least 100 yards apart. I stared at it, my earlier confidence evaporating. This hadn't been here last night when I'd walked this trail with Hayward. I was sure of it, which meant someone, or something, had built it in the last 24 hours. I approached slowly, every horror movie I'd ever seen screaming at me not to touch it, but the rule was explicit, dismantle immediately. I kicked the top. Stone off! It tumbled into the underbrush with a heavy thud. Nothing happened. Emboldened, I knocked over the rest of the structure, then picked up each stone and threw it as far as I could in different directions. Some I carried 100 yards up the trail. Others I hurled into the forest. The largest one, I rolled down a slope until it disappeared into darkness. When I was finished, I was breathing hard, sweating despite the cold. The pile was gone, the stones scattered. I'd followed the rule. I kept walking, checking over my shoulder every few steps. Trail 2's checkpoint was unremarkable. Trees counted correctly, logbook signed, no anomalies. But my nerves were back, that sense of being watched intensifying with every mile. Trail 3 took me deeper into the old growth, into the cathedral of massive trees, where Hayward and I had experienced the silence. I moved carefully, listening constantly, the laminated card with the words almost burning in my pocket. The forest stayed noisy, wind, water, creaking wood, normal. I was beginning to relax again when I heard it. Crying, a child crying, somewhere off to the left, maybe 50 yards into the forest. I stopped walking. My light swept the trees, finding nothing. The crying continued. Soft, heartbroken, the kind of sobbing that came from someone small and lost and terrified. Rule 4. Never follow the crying child's voice into the forest. There are no children in the preserve. My rational brain knew this, but the sound was so real, so genuinely distressed, that every human instinct screamed at me to help. What if it really was a lost child? What if someone had brought their kid hiking and gotten separated, and the kid was out here alone, and there are no children in the preserve? I forced myself to start walking again, staying on the trail, moving away from the sound. The crying followed me. It stayed off to the left, always about 50 yards away, keeping pace. When I walked faster, it moved faster. When I slowed, it slowed. The character of the crying changed too, more desperate, more frightened, adding words now. Help me, please. I'm lost. I can't find my mommy. My hands were shaking. I gripped the maglite tighter and kept walking. Please, it's so dark. I'm scared. Please help me. I started reciting the words from Rule 15 under my breath, a talisman against the sound. Ne kwalisham ne kane watka ne hemkan, muka muknika hiyu. The crying stopped abruptly. The sudden silence was almost worse. I stood frozen on the trail, light sweeping the forest, seeing nothing. Then, from the same location where the crying had been, a voice, adult, female, cold, smart boy. I ran until my lungs burned, until the Trail 3 checkpoint shelter came into view, until I could throw myself inside the three-sided structure and press my back against the solid wood wall, gasping. No sounds of pursuit, no crying, no adult voice, just normal forest sounds and my own ragged breathing. I stayed in that shelter for 10 minutes, waiting for my heart rate to drop, waiting to be sure nothing had followed. My hands shook as I signed the logbook, my writing barely legible. 10:47 p.m. Ranger Chen, Trail 3 checkpoint, anomaly. Crying child voice did not follow. Rule 4 observed. When I finally forced myself to continue, I kept my pace quick and my light moving constantly. Trail 4 took me up towards Summit Point. The elevation gain was noticeable, my calves burning as the trail switched back up the mountainside. The trees thinned slightly here, allowing glimpses of the night sky. Still that incredible canopy of stars, the Milky Way visible as a river of light. Summit Point itself was a rocky outcrop with a 360-degree view of the preserve. In daylight, it would have been spectacular. In the dark, with only my maglite and the stars, it was like standing on the edge of an infinite void. The offering box was exactly where Hayward had indicated on the map, bolted to a flat rock face about 4 feet off the ground. It was made of metal, painted forest green, with a hinged lid and a simple latch. I pulled out the wrapped package from my pack. It was heavier than I'd thought, and something inside shifted when I moved it. I desperately wanted to unwrap it, to see what I was offering and to what. Never look inside the box. I unlatched the lid and opened it. Immediately, a smell hit me. Copper and earth and something rotting. My eyes tried to focus on what was inside, but I forced myself to look away, to stare at the stars instead. I dropped the package inside, heard it land with a wet thump, and slammed the lid shut. For just a moment, I thought I heard something that might have been breathing coming from inside the box. I left Summit Point quickly. The Trail 4 checkpoint was another mile down the far side of the summit. I counted trees, 16, matching the plaque, and signed the logbook. The previous entry caught my eye. It was from 2 weeks ago, different handwriting from Hayward's, 9/3, 11:23 p.m., Ranger Voss, Trail 4 checkpoint, anomaly. Heard voices at Summit Point after making offering. Sounded like prayers or chanting. Language unknown, did not investigate, continued patrol. Below it, in what I now recognized as Hayward's handwriting, Ranger Voss, contract completed 9/15, left preserve, survived. How many rangers had worked here? How many had survived to complete their contracts? How many were on that wall of missing persons? I was dwelling on this when I reached the intersection where trails 4 and 5 met. The trail markers were clear. Green blazes pointing right for Trail 5, continuing the patrol route. But there was another marker, a red blaze painted on a tree just left of the intersection, pointing into the forest where no trail was visible. Rule 11. Ignore all trail markers written in red. Follow only official green markers. Red markers lead nowhere you want to go. I stared at the red blaze. The paint looked fresh, almost wet, and now that I was looking, I could see more red blazes, leading deeper into the forest, disappearing into darkness. I forced myself to turn right, following the green markers onto Trail 5. I'd gone maybe 100 yards when I heard footsteps behind me. I spun, light sweeping the trail. Nothing, no one. I kept walking. The footsteps continued, matching my pace. When I stopped, they stopped. When I walked, they walked. "Hello?" I called, immediately regretting it. The footsteps stopped. Then, from the darkness behind me, a man's voice. "Am I still on the trail?" My blood turned to ice. Rule 5. I had to answer correctly. Exactly correctly. I turned slowly, keeping my light pointed down so as not to blind whoever was there. A man stood on the trail about 20 feet behind me. He wore hiking clothes, jeans, a fleece jacket, boots. He had a beard, maybe 40 years old, and he carried a backpack. He looked completely normal, except he cast no shadow in my light, and his eyes reflected like an animal's. "Am I still on the trail?" he repeated, his voice perfectly pleasant, perfectly normal. I forced the words out. "For tonight, yes." The man smiled. It was too wide, showing too many teeth. "For tonight," he agreed. Then he turned and walked back the way he'd come, his footsteps fading into silence. I stood frozen for a full minute before I could make my legs move again. I completed trails 5 and 6 in a state of hypervigilance, jumping at every sound, seeing threats in every shadow, but I encountered nothing else unusual. The checkpoints were routine, the tree counts matched, the logbooks showed nothing alarming. By the time I returned to the ranger station, it was 4:47 a.m. Dawn was still more than an hour away, but I could see the faintest lightening of the sky to the east. Hayward was at his desk, the 4 white candles burned down to stubs but still lit. He looked up as I entered. "Anomalies?" I told him everything. The can, the crying child, the adult voice, the hiker who asked if he was still on the trail. I showed him my logbook entries. He listened without interrupting, his expression unchanging. When I finished, he nodded once. "You followed the rules. Good. That's it? That's all you have to say? There's something out there that sounds like a crying child, and when you don't fall for it, it reveals itself and, yes." Hayward stood and extinguished the candles, now that it was past 4 a.m. "That's the lure. It's been here longer than this preserve has existed, longer than white settlers came to Oregon, longer than the tribes that came before them. It hunts using distress calls, children, women, injured men, animals, whatever works. You did exactly right by ignoring it and speaking the words. And the hiker? One of the lost. People who died in the preserve and didn't leave. They're bound to the trails, walking them eternally, not quite aware they're dead. The phrase you gave him maintains the boundary between your world and his. If you'd said anything else, he might have realized what you are. What am I? Alive. Haywood moved to the window, looking out at the forest. They're drawn to that. To warmth, breath, heartbeat. The rules keep you separate, keep you safe. Usually. Usually? Nothing is absolute, Marcus. The rules work most of the time. But this is a thin place, and thin places are unpredictable. That's why you need to follow every rule, every time, precisely. Because the one time you don't might be the time it matters. I slumped into a chair, exhaustion crashing over me. How do you do this? Night after night, year after year. You get used to it. The fear becomes routine. The impossible becomes normal. He turned to look at me. Get some sleep. You're on again tonight. Haywood. Those people on the wall. The missing persons. Were they all rangers? Some. Others were hikers who didn't follow warnings. Others were here before there were warnings. He gestured at the wall. I keep their pictures to remember why the rules matter. They're not just bureaucratic bullshit. They're lessons written in blood. I walked back to the cabin as the sky lightened from black to deep blue. Birds were starting to sing, normal morning sounds, like the world was just waking up to a normal day. But I'd seen what walked these forests at night. I knew better now. I fell asleep wondering what else I'd encounter before my 6 months were up. Wondering if I'd survive long enough to complete my contract. Night 3. I woke to the smell of smoke. For a confused moment, I thought the cabin was on fire. Then I realized the scent was coming from outside. Wood smoke, like a campfire. I checked my watch, 4:17 p.m. I'd slept for nearly 11 hours. My body ached from 2 nights of intensive hiking, but the sleep had helped. I felt more clear-headed, more ready to face whatever was coming. I opened the cabin door. The source of the smoke was immediately visible. Haywood was burning something in a metal drum between the ranger station and my cabin. Papers, it looked like. He fed them into the flames one by one, watching them curl and blacken. I walked over. What are you doing? Monthly purge. Some things shouldn't be written down, but we write them down anyway. Then we burn them. He fed another paper into the fire. I caught a glimpse of text before it burned. Came to the door again, but this time it had my sister's voice. My sister who died 6 years ago. How did it know? The paper blackened and turned to ash. Ranger Morrison, I asked. Yes. He wrote too much, thought too much about it. Analysis doesn't help here. Acceptance does. Haywood fed the last few papers into the fire, then looked at me. You ready for another patrol? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice. You can walk away right now. Forfeit the money, get in your car, leave. I thought about it, seriously considered it. Then I thought about my $340 bank account, my car that was barely running, my complete lack of prospects. I'm ready, I said. Good. New moon is in 2 days. That means no old growth patrols on that night. Plan your route accordingly. You can double up on some of the other trails or take the night to do maintenance on the shelters. Your choice. I remembered Rule 7. Do not enter the old growth section during a new moon. What happens in the old growth during a new moon? Haywood was quiet for a long moment, staring into the dying fire. The oldest things wake up. The things that predate the agreements. The things that don't care about our rules. Stay out of there when the moon is dark, and you'll never have to find out. He walked back to the ranger station without another word. I started my patrol at 7:30 p.m., determined to be efficient. I'd mapped out a route that would take me through all 6 trails in under 9 hours if I kept a good pace. The first 3 trails were quiet. I dismantled 2 more cairns on Trail 2. They were back, rebuilt in the same location as last night. I heard the lure on Trail 3 again, but this time it sounded like a woman calling for help. I ignored it, spoke the words when it got too persistent, and moved on. It was on Trail 4, approaching Summit Point, that things got strange. I'd just started the uphill switchbacks when my radio crackled. Static at first, then Haywood's voice, broken and distorted. "Marcus, Trail 4. Check. Summit Point." More static. I keyed the radio. "Say again? You're breaking up." Nothing but static. I tapped the radio, checked the battery. Full. This checkpoint had worked fine last night. Rule 8. If your radio produces only static at a checkpoint where it previously worked, leave the area immediately and do not return for 24 hours. But Haywood had just tried to tell me something about Trail 4 or Summit Point. What if there was actually an emergency? What if he needed help? I hesitated at the intersection, caught between the rule and the possibility that my boss, my only lifeline in this nightmare, was in trouble. The radio crackled again. Haywood's voice, clearer this time. "Marcus, can you hear me? There's been an incident at Summit Point. I need you to check the offering box. Make sure it's still latched." That decided it. I keyed the radio. "Received. Heading to Summit Point now." "Good. And Marcus, be careful. Something got out." The radio went silent. I climbed the switchbacks faster than was safe, my light bouncing wildly, my breath coming in gasps. What did he mean? Something got out? Out of what? The offering box. Summit Point appeared, the rocky outcrop silhouetted against the stars. I swept my light across the area, finding nothing unusual. The offering box was right where it should be, still bolted to the rock face, but the lid was open. I approached slowly, every nerve screaming danger. The metal lid hung at an angle, the latch broken or torn off. I shone my light inside. Empty. The package I'd left yesterday was gone. So was whatever else had been in. There, the things I'd heard breathing, the source of that copper and rot smell. Gone. I keyed the radio with shaking hands. "Haywood, I'm at Summit Point. The offering box is open. It's empty. What do I..." Static. Pure static. Then, from the radio, a voice that was almost but not quite Haywood's. "Come back to the station, Marcus. It's not safe out there. Come back now." Every hair on my body stood up. That wasn't Haywood. The voice was too smooth, too young. The cadence was wrong. I remembered Rule 8. If your radio produces only static at a checkpoint where it previously worked, leave the area immediately. I'd broken the rule. I'd stayed. And now something was using my radio, imitating Haywood, trying to lure me back. I turned off the radio completely and ran. I didn't follow the trail. I cut straight down the mountainside, crashing through underbrush, branches tearing at my clothes. I had to get away from Summit Point, away from whatever had gotten out of that box. Behind me, I heard something moving, something large, keeping pace, matching my speed. I didn't look back. I just ran, my maglite beam jerking wildly, my breath ragged. I hit the Trail 5 marker at full speed, nearly crashing into the signpost. I forced myself to stop, to get my bearings. Trail 5 would take me to the checkpoint shelter, and shelters were safe. Haywood had said so. If something goes wrong, get to a shelter. I ran down Trail 5, focusing on the green blazes, ignoring the red markers that had multiplied since last night. They were everywhere now, dozens of them, leading off into the forest in all directions. The shelter appeared. I threw myself inside, pressing against the back wall, my light pointed at the open front. The forest had gone completely silent. Not again. Not now. I fumbled for the words, but before I could speak them, something stepped into the pool of light in front of the shelter. It looked like Haywood. Exactly like him. Same height, same weathered face, same ranger uniform. But its movements were too smooth, too fluid, and its eyes were completely black. No whites, no irises, just pools of darkness. Marcus, it said in Hayward's voice, you need to come with me. It's not safe out here. You're not Hayward, I whispered. The thing smiled. No, but I'm wearing his face well, don't you think? I've had practice. I've worn many faces in this forest. What are you? I am what was in the box. What you fed. What you released by breaking Rule 8. It took a step closer. You should have left when the radio went to static. But you stayed. You listened. You gave me permission. My hand found a laminated card in my pocket. Ne qualish am neka ne wat ka. Those words don't work on me, the thing interrupted. Those are for the old ones, the bound ones. I am neither old nor bound. I am something else, something hungry. It took another step. It was at the threshold of the shelter now. But, it continued, I am bound by other rules. Rules, older than your words. I cannot enter a shelter uninvited. So I'll wait. You have to come out eventually. When the sun rises, when you think you're safe, when you let your guard down. I'll be here. It sat down cross-legged in front of the shelter, perfectly still, those black eyes fixed on me. We have hours, it said pleasantly. Tell me about yourself, Marcus Chen. Tell me about the desperation that brought you here. Tell me about Jen, about the job you lost, about sleeping in your car. Tell me everything. I sat in that shelter for what felt like hours, my back pressed against the wood, my maglite trained on the thing wearing Hayward's face. It didn't move, didn't blink, just sat there, watching me with those void black eyes. You're not very talkative, it observed. The last ranger was talkative. He told me everything in the first hour, about his daughter, his divorce, his gambling debts. Very chatty. Right up until dawn when he thought I'd gone and stepped outside. What happened to him? He's on the wall now. The thing's smile widened impossibly. What do you think happened? I didn't answer. My mind was racing, trying to remember the rules, trying to find a loophole. The shelter was safe as long as I didn't invite this thing in. But I couldn't stay here forever. Dawn was still hours away, and even if I waited until then, my radio, I'd turned it off. But maybe if I turned it back on, maybe if the real Hayward was monitoring. Don't bother, the thing said, as if reading my thoughts. Your radio won't work while I'm here. I'm generating too much interference. It's a side effect of my nature. Technology doesn't like me very much. What are you? I told you. I'm what you fed. Every 3 days, a package goes into that box. Every 3 days, I'm given sustenance. Usually it's enough to keep me satisfied, keep me contained. But tonight, it tilted its head, the movement eerily bird-like. Tonight the box wasn't properly latched. An oversight, a mistake, or perhaps something deliberate. Hard to say, but the result is the same. I got out. Hayward will come looking for me. Will he? Are you sure? Maybe he's the one who left the box unlatched. Maybe he's tired of this job, tired of following rules, tired of feeding things like me. Maybe he wants to retire, and the easiest way to do that is to let me take care of the new ranger. The thought sent ice through my veins. Had Hayward set me up? But no, he'd seemed genuine in his warnings, in his training. He'd worked here for 23 years. Why sabotage me now? Unless he hadn't. Unless this thing was lying. You're trying to make me doubt him, I said. Trying to isolate me, make me panic. The thing laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. Smart boy, yes, I'm lying. Hayward didn't sabotage you. He's probably frantically trying to figure out where you are right now. But here's the thing about thin places, Marcus. The barriers between true and false are thinner too. My lies feel like truth. Your fears feel like certainty. That's why this place is so dangerous. You can't trust your own mind. I forced myself to think clearly. The rules. There had to be something in the rules that could help. Then I remembered. Rule 12. If you see your vehicle in 2 locations, neither one is safe. Return to the ranger station on foot immediately. Not directly applicable, but the principle. If something appeared wrong, get back to the ranger station. The station was safe. The candles, the protocols, the reinforced door. That's where I needed to be. But to get there, I'd have to leave the shelter. And this thing was waiting. I can see you thinking, it said, trying to find a way out. There isn't one. Not from me. Not now that I'm free and fed and strong. It stood up, brushing off pants that didn't have any dirt on them. But I'm feeling generous. I'll make you an offer. I'm not interested in... You haven't heard it yet. Listen, I'll let you go. I'll return to the box, latch myself in, wait for the next feeding. All you have to do is answer one question truthfully. Just one, and then you're free. What's the question? Why did you really take this job? I stared at it. I told you. I needed money. I was desperate. No. It moved closer to the threshold. Right to the edge it couldn't cross. That's the surface reason. That's what you tell yourself. But there's something else, isn't there? Something deeper. A reason you haven't admitted even to yourself. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat because it was right. Yes, I'd needed money. Yes, I'd been desperate. But there was something else. Something I'd been avoiding thinking about for months. I wanted to disappear, I heard myself say. After everything fell apart, the job, Jen, the eviction, I wanted to vanish. Not kill myself, but just cease existing in the world I knew. Go somewhere no one could find me. Somewhere I didn't have to be Marcus Chen, failed developer, failed boyfriend, failed adult. I saw that poster and I thought, yes, the middle of nowhere, perfect. The thing's smile became almost kind, almost human. There, was that so hard? The truth. I answered, now let me go. I said I would return to the box and latch myself in. I didn't say when. It sat back down. I'll honor the spirit of our agreement at dawn. Until then, we wait together. Rage flooded through me. You lied. No, I was very specific. You just heard what you wanted to hear. Another lesson about thin places, Marcus. Be very, very careful about the agreements you make. Language matters. Precision matters. That's why the rules are worded so exactly. I wanted to scream, wanted to throw something at it, but that would require moving closer to the threshold, closer to those black eyes and that too wide smile. So I waited. I sat with my back against the wall, conserving my mag-light battery, watching the thing that wore Hayward's face like a stolen coat. Hours passed. The thing didn't move, didn't speak again, just watched. At some point, I must have dozed off from sheer exhaustion because I jerked awake to find the sky lightening in the east. Dawn was maybe 20 minutes away. The thing was gone. I scrambled to my feet, checking the area in front of the shelter. Nothing. No sign it had ever been there. I waited another 10 minutes until full daylight flooded the forest, turning the nightmare landscape back into something recognizable. Only then did I risk stepping out of the shelter. The forest was normal. Birds singing, wind in the trees, warm morning sun filtering through the canopy. I ran back to the ranger station. Hayward was sitting on the steps outside the main building, a shotgun across his lap. He looked like he hadn't slept. When he saw me, relief washed over his face. Thank Christ, what happened? Your radio went dead at 9:47 p.m. I've been trying to reach you for hours. I told him everything. The static, the message that sounded like him, the offering box standing open, the thing that chased me, the shelter standoff. He listened with increasing tension, the muscles in his jaw working. The box was latched when I checked it 2 days ago, he said when I finished. I'm meticulous about that. Someone or something opened it. The thing said it was what we feed. What's in those packages? Hayward stood, the shotgun held loose but ready. Offerings, specific things at once. Meat, sometimes. Other things I don't ask about. The packages are prepared by Associates. People who understand the agreements. Associates? What associates? Who the hell knows about this place? There's a network. People who monitor thin places, who maintain the boundaries, who ensure the agreements are kept. The preserve is one of many such locations. I report to them. They provide resources, guidance, and yes, the offerings. This was the most information Hayward had ever volunteered. I pressed him. Who are they? That's not your concern. Your concern is following the rules and surviving your contract. He started walking toward Trail 5. Show me the box. We hiked up to Summit Point in the morning light. The trail looked completely different, beautiful even. Shafts of sunlight through the canopy, birds flitting between branches, the smell of pine and earth. No red markers visible anywhere. The offering box was still open, the latch definitely broken. Hayward examined it closely, running his fingers over the torn metal. Force, he muttered. From the inside, it broke out, just like it said. He pulled a radio from his belt, not the same model as mine, something older and more heavy-duty, and keyed it. Station 7 to Cascade Command. We have a breach. Summit Point offering box compromised. Entity loose. Request immediate containment protocol. A burst of static, then a woman's voice. Confirmed. Station 7. Containment team dispatching. ETA 6 hours. Maintain protocols until arrival. Do not engage. Directly. Understood. Station 7 out. Hayward looked at me. You need to stay in your cabin today. Don't come out until I tell you. The team will handle this. What team? What are they going to do? Recapture it. Send it back to wherever it came from originally. It's happened before. It'll happen again. He started back down the trail. This is why the rules exist, Marcus. This is why they matter. One broken latch and something escapes that shouldn't be loose in our world. How did the latch break? He didn't answer for a long moment. Then, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I tried to sleep in my cabin, but every sound jerked me awake. Birds, wind, the creak of trees. I kept expecting black eyes to appear at the window. Kept expecting that too smooth voice to call my name. Around noon, I heard vehicles arriving. Through my cabin window, I watched 2 black SUVs pull up to the ranger station. 5 people got out, all wearing tactical gear, all carrying equipment I didn't recognize. They conferred with Hayward briefly, then disappeared into the forest. An hour later, they returned. They were carrying something wrapped in what looked like silver mesh, roughly person-sized, writhing and making sounds that might have been words or might have been screaming. They loaded it into one of the SUVs. The woman who'd spoken on the radio, middle-aged, severe face, eyes that had seen too much, approached my cabin. I met her at the door. Marcus Chen, she said. Not a question. I'm Director Reeves, Cascade Command. I understand you encountered the entity. Yeah. It. Talk to me. Try to trick me into leaving the shelter. But you didn't. Good. That shows discipline. She glanced at her team loading the SUV. We've contained it for now. It'll be relocated to a more secure facility. But I need to ask you some questions. What kind of questions? Did it tell you anything specific about the preserve, about the agreements, about why you were hired? The last question sent a chill through me. Why would it know why I was hired? Reeves studied me with those 2 knowing eyes. Because entities like that one are connected to this place in ways we don't fully understand. They sometimes have knowledge they shouldn't have. So I'm asking, did it say anything about you specifically? I thought back. It wanted me to tell it about my past, about being desperate. It said desperation was why I was hired. Hayward told you that too, I understand. Yes, he said desperate people are reliable. True, but incomplete. She pulled out a tablet, scrolled through something. Marcus Chen, age 28, born in Portland. Parents, David Chen and Margaret Yao Chen. Father deceased 2019, mother deceased 2021. No siblings. Girlfriend Jennifer Santos, Relationship terminated August 2023. Employed by Next Tech Solutions until... How do you know all this? We vet everyone who works in the Preserve network, thoroughly. She looked up from the tablet. Here's what's interesting. Your father, David Chen, he worked as a surveyor for the Forest Service in the 1990s. He surveyed portions of what's now the Columbia Wilderness Preserve. In fact, he was part of the team that established the preserve boundaries in 1997. The world tilted slightly. What? You didn't know? My dad never mentioned, he never said anything about this place. He wouldn't have. The preserve isn't publicly acknowledged. Officially, this is just state forest land. The ranger station doesn't exist on any map. Your father signed NDAs, same as you will. She closed the tablet. But here's the thing. People who've had family members work in or around thin places are sometimes more compatible with them, more able to perceive and survive them. We don't know why. Genetic sensitivity, maybe. Psychological predisposition, something. My father, here, 26 years ago. Did something happen to him here? Reeves's expression softened slightly. He filed several reports about anomalies during his survey work. Unusual tree counts, unexplained sounds, tools going missing and reappearing, standard thin place phenomena. After the preserve boundaries were established, he requested to never be assigned to this area again. His request was granted. He never told me any of this. Would you have believed him if he had? She gestured at the forest around us. Would you have believed any of this before you experienced it yourself? No, I wouldn't have. I'd have thought he was developing dementia or having delusions. Why does this matter now? I asked. Because the entity that escaped specifically targeted you. It could have gone anywhere in the preserve, could have hunted any number of hikers or animals, but it went to Trail 5, to that shelter, to you. That suggests something. Connection, recognition, purpose. You think it knew my father? I think this place might have known your father, and might recognize you as his son. Whether that makes you safer or more targeted. She shrugged. We'll see. She walked back to the SUVs. They left in a cloud of dust, taking the writhing silver-wrapped thing with them. I stood outside my cabin, staring at the forest my father had surveyed decades ago, the forest he'd found strange enough to never return to. Had he known what this place really was? Had he seen the things I was seeing? And why had I ended up here, of all places? Hayward emerged from the ranger station and walked over. Reeves tell you? About my father. Yeah. I didn't know when I hired you. I found out later, after I ran your background check. By then you were already here. Would you have hired me if you'd known? He considered. Probably. Like Reeves said, family connection sometimes helps. Makes you less likely to dismiss what you see, less likely to break down psychologically. You've got a frame of reference, even if you don't know it. I don't have any frame of reference. My dad never told me anything, didn't he? Hayward tilted his head. Think back. Did he ever warn you about certain places, certain behaviors, tell you to avoid specific areas or times? I thought about it, and slowly, memories surfaced. My father teaching me to hike, but insisting we only go during daylight, always turning back before sunset, no matter where we were on the trail. My father telling me never to stack rocks in the forest, never to build cairns, because it disrupts the natural order. My father's reaction when I'd said I wanted to be a park ranger as a kid. The immediate, intense discouragement, the insistence that I pursue something safer, something with a future. Oh my God, I whispered. He was trying to keep me away from places like this. Probably, but you ended up here anyway. Fate, coincidence, or something else. Hayward put a hand on my shoulder. Get some rest. You're back on patrol tonight. And Marcus, stay out of the old grove tomorrow night. New moon. Whatever happens, whatever you hear, whatever you see, do not enter the old growth. What's in there? Things that make the entity from last night look tame. He walked back to the ranger station, leaving me with my thoughts and my father's unspoken warnings. Night 4. I approached my patrol that night with new awareness. This wasn't just a thin place. It was a place my father had known, had feared, had tried to protect me from. And I was walking the same trails he might have walked, seeing the same impossible things. The patrol started normally. Trails 1 and 2 were quiet. I found and dismantled 3 cans on trail 2. They were multiplying, appearing faster than I could scatter them. Someone or something was building them as fast as I destroyed them. On trail 3, the lure tried a new tactic. Instead of a crying child or a woman in distress, it used my father's voice. Marcus, is that you? I'm lost, son. I can't find the trail. Help me. I kept walking, jaw clenched, hands fisted. It wasn't him. It couldn't be him. He was dead. I'd scattered his ashes myself off the coast near Cannon Beach. Marcus, please. It's so dark. I'm scared. I spoke the words loudly, clearly. Nekwalisham nika, newatka, nehemkan muka muk nikahiyu. My father's voice cut off mid-sentence. Then, in that same cold, adult voice the lure had used before. He was here, you know. Your father. He walked these trails. He saw me. He ran from me, just like you're running now. Like father, like son. I didn't respond. I just kept walking until I reached the checkpoint and the lure's voice faded behind me. At Summit Point, the offering box had been replaced. A new one, more heavily reinforced, with what looked like multiple locks. A note was taped to it. Do not use until further notice. Offerings suspended pending investigation. Reeves. So I had no offering to make. I wondered what that meant for the thing that usually received them, whether it would come looking for its missed meal. I was descending from Summit, Point on trail 4 when I found a journal. It was lying on the trail, right in the middle of the path, impossible to miss. A small leather-bound book, water-stained and worn. The cover had initials embossed on it, DC David Chen, my father. My hands shook as I picked it up. This couldn't be real. This had to be another trick, another manipulation by something trying to get in my head. But the journal felt real. The leather was soft with age, the pages yellowed. I opened it to the first entry, saw handwriting I recognized from old birthday cards and notes my father had left around the house. June 15th, 1997, first day surveying the new preserve area. Beautiful country, old growth forest, incredible biodiversity. The kind of place that makes you remember why you became a surveyor in the first place. But something feels off. Can't put my finger on it. The other guys on the team feel it too, though no one wants to say it out loud. Like we're being watched, like we're not welcome. I flipped ahead, scanning entries. The first few weeks were routine. Survey work, boundary markers, campsite notes. Then, July 3rd, 1997, found something strange today. A stack of rocks, perfectly balanced, at least 5 feet tall. No way it formed naturally. When I asked the local ranger, guy named Hayward, been here for years apparently, about it, he told me to take it apart and scatter the stones. Wouldn't explain why, just said it was important. I did what he said. As I was scattering the last stone, I could have sworn I heard something screaming in the distance, like a woman in pain. Hayward said it was a mountain lion. But I've heard mountain lions. That wasn't a mountain lion. Hayward. My father had known Hayward 26 years ago, and Hayward had already been here for years. How old was Hayward? I kept reading. July 18th, 1997. I'm requesting reassignment. I don't care if it looks bad on my record. Something is wrong with this place. Last night I was finishing measurements near the area they're calling the old growth section. The sun set while I was still in there, and I swear to God, the forest changed. The trees moved, not swaying in the wind. Moved, shifted positions. I found myself on a trail that hadn't existed 10 minutes before. I ran. I don't know how I found my way out. When I finally made it back to camp, Haywood was waiting. He looked at me and said, "You were in the old growth after dark." Not a question, a statement. He gave me a list, rules, he called them. Things I have to do, things I can't do. He said if I follow them, I'll be safe. If I don't, I'll end up like the others. What others? I'm not staying to find out. The next entry was dated a week later, July 25th, 1997. Final day. Survey complete. I'm never coming back here. Ever. I don't care what they offer to pay me. This place is wrong in ways I can't explain and don't want to understand. I asked Haywood how long he'd been here. He said, long enough to know the rules matter. When I pushed him for an actual number, he just smiled and said, longer than you'd believe. Before I left, he gave me advice. If you have kids, keep them away from thin places. People like us, people who can see, who can sense, it's in our blood. Our children inherit it. Keep them safe. Keep them ignorant. I'm going to take his advice. That was the last entry. I stood on the trail, holding my father's journal, tears blurring my vision. He'd known. He'd experienced this. And he'd spent the rest of his life trying to make sure I never would. But here I was anyway. I slipped the journal into my pack and continued the patrol, my mind reeling. The journal couldn't be a coincidence. Someone or something had placed it there for me to find. But why? What was I supposed to do with this information? The rest of the night passed in a blur. I completed the remaining checkpoints mechanically, barely registering my surroundings. By the time I returned to the ranger station at 5:30 a.m., I felt hollowed out, exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Haywood was lighting the candles for the 2:04 a.m. window when I entered. He looked up, saw my face, and his expression hardened. What happened? I pulled out the journal and placed it on his desk. You knew my father. He looked at the journal for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, he was here for 6 weeks in the summer of '97. Good man, smart. He figured out pretty quickly that this place wasn't normal. You gave him rules, the same rules you gave me. Not exactly the same. The rules evolve as we learn more, but the core principles are the same. You told him to keep his kids away from thin places, to keep them ignorant. I did. Haywood met my eyes. For all the good it did, here you are. Did you arrange this? Did you put that poster where I'd find it? Manipulate me into coming here? Plant the journal for me to... No. His voice was hard, definitive. I don't have that kind of reach or power. I put out a standard job posting through the network's recruitment channels. You called. I hired you. The journal. He picked it up, flipped through it. I don't know how this got on the trail. I've never seen it before. Your father must have left it here when he finished his survey. For 26 years? Just lying on the trail? No, not lying there that long. But thin places have fluid temporality. Things from the past can resurface. Things hidden can become visible. Maybe the journal was always here, waiting in some fold of time for the right moment, the right person. He set it down. Or maybe something wanted you to find it, to understand your connection to this place. Why? What difference does it make? I don't know, Marcus. I really don't. He sounded tired, old, more than old, ancient. But in 23 years of working here, I've learned that these places have agendas, intelligence, purpose. They're not just random pockets of weirdness. They're orchestrated. By what or whom, I can't say. But there are patterns, connections. The fact that your father was here, the fact that you're here now, that's not random. That's a pattern. I slumped into a chair. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Every night something new, something worse. How much longer until one of the rules doesn't work? Until I end up on that wall? Haywood was quiet for a moment. Then he opened a locked drawer and pulled out the worn leather journal I'd seen before, the one with entries from previous rangers. He flipped to a page near the middle and turned it toward me. September 12th, 2003. Ranger Morrison. I thought I was going to die tonight. The thing from the lake followed me for 3 miles, imitating my wife's voice, my daughter's voice, everyone I'd ever loved. I almost gave in, almost stopped and turned around. But I remembered the rules. I remembered what Haywood said. Your understanding is not required, only your compliance. That phrase has become my mantra. I don't need to understand why the rules work, why this place exists, why I'm here. I just need to follow them. One night at a time. One rule at a time. If I make it to the end of my contract, I'll leave this place and never look back. But while I'm here, I'm going to survive. That's my only job. Survive. Below it, in Haywood's handwriting, Ranger Morrison completed his contract and left. He survived. So can you. One night at a time, Haywood said. That's all any of us can do. You've survived 4 nights. You have the rest of your contract ahead of you. But right now, you just need to survive tonight's sleep and tomorrow night's patrol. Tomorrow's the new moon. Yes, which means no old growth. Plan your route accordingly. The other trails will be more active. Entities displaced from the old growth tend to migrate to adjacent areas. Be vigilant. Follow the rules. Survive. He said it like a benediction, like a prayer. I took my father's journal and walked back to my cabin. The sun was rising, painting the massive trees, gold and amber. Beautiful, peaceful, a lie. I slept fitfully, dreaming of my father walking these same trails, hearing the same voices, fighting the same terrors. Had he dreamed of me, here, 26 years in his future? Had he known I was coming? Night 5, new moon. The forest felt different even before I entered it. The air was heavier, charged with potential energy like the moment before a lightning strike. The darkness was absolute. No moon, no ambient light, just my mag light against the void. I'd planned my route carefully. Trails 1, 2, and 3 twice each, plus extended time at each checkpoint to run out the clock until dawn. No trail 4, no summit point, and absolutely no old growth. The map showed the old growth section clearly. A roughly circular area in the heart of the preserve, maybe 3 square miles. The oldest trees, the densest forest, the deepest part of the thin place. And tonight, forbidden. Trail 1 was more active than I'd ever seen it. I counted 6, different sets of glowing eyes, watching from the forest. None approaching, but all tracking my movement. The trees themselves seemed to lean in closer, branches reaching across the trail like grasping hands. I dismantled 5 cairns on Trail 2. They were getting larger, more elaborate. The largest was taller than me, stones perfectly balanced in defiance of physics. When I kicked it over, the crash echoed through the forest like a gunshot, and somewhere in the distance, something howled in rage. I kept moving. Trail 3 was where things got worse. I was approaching the checkpoint when I saw her. A woman standing in the middle of the trail, illuminated by my mag light. She wore hiking clothes, jeans, a fleece jacket, boots. She looked solid, real, alive, but she was too still, not breathing, not shifting her weight, just standing. "Excuse me," she said as I approached. Her voice was perfectly normal. "Am I still on the trail?" Rule 5. The question I had to answer exactly right. For tonight, yes. She smiled. For tonight. I've heard that before. Do you know how many nights I've been here? How many rangers have told me, for tonight, yes? I didn't answer. I started to walk around her, giving her wide berth. 53, she continued, turning to follow me with her eyes. 53 rangers over 17 years. I've asked each one the same question, received the same answer. For tonight, yes. But what about tomorrow? What about the night after? I don't know, I said, immediately regretting engaging. Neither do I. I don't remember how I got here. Don't remember dying. Just remember asking a ranger if I was still on the trail, and hearing for tonight, yes, and then nothing. Just endless nights, asking the same question, hearing the same answer. She took a step toward me. What if I asked a different question? What if I said, "Can you help me leave?" I can't. How do you know? Have you tried? You're not real. You're one of the lost. You're a remnant, an echo. I feel real. She looked at her hands, turning them over. I think real thoughts. I experience time passing. I remember things. Doesn't that make me real enough? I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I can't help you. Then I'm trapped here, forever, asking my question, hearing my answer, waiting for a yes that's not qualified by a for tonight. She stepped off the trail and disappeared into the forest. There one moment and gone the next, like a light switching off. I stood there for a long moment, shaken by the encounter in a way the more obviously hostile entities hadn't managed. The thing wearing Hayward's face had been frightening, but that woman, trapped, aware, suffering, was heartbreaking. How many of them were there? How many dead souls walking these trails, asking their questions, waiting for answers that would never come? I reached the checkpoint and signed a logbook with shaking hands. As I was leaving the shelter, my radio crackled. Marcus. Hayward's voice, tense. Where are you? Trail 3, checkpoint. Just leaving. Good. Stay away from the old growth perimeter. We're getting unusual readings. More activity than normal. What kind of activity? The kind that means something's trying to get out, or something's trying to get in. Either way, maintain distance. If you see anything emerging from the old growth area, do not engage. Call immediately and retreat. Understood. The radio went silent. I checked my map, orienting myself. The old growth section was about a quarter-mile west of my current position. Close, but not too close. I started back down Trail 3, heading toward the intersection with Trail 1. I'd loop back, do another round, kill time until I stopped. There was a red trail marker ahead. On a tree directly in my path, a fresh red blaze, the paint still wet and dripping. Rule 11. Ignore all trail markers written in red. Follow only official green markers. Red markers lead nowhere you want to go. I looked for green markers. Found one, off to the right, leading away from the red blaze. I followed the green. 10 steps later, another red marker. This one on my left. I kept following green markers, but red ones kept appearing, multiplying, until it felt like the entire forest was bleeding crimson blazes. Then I realized the red markers were herding me, pushing me in a specific direction, toward the old growth. I stopped, turned around, tried to backtrack, but the trail behind me had changed. Trees I didn't recognize, landmarks that hadn't been there moments before. I pulled out my compass. The needle spun wildly, unable to find north. Shit, I whispered. My radio crackled. Marcus, respond. Hayward, urgent. I'm here. The trail changed. I think I'm being pushed toward the old growth. What's your last confirmed position? Trail 3, about a quarter-mile past the checkpoint. Okay, listen carefully. The forest is doing what it does on new moons, shifting, reconfiguring. You need to find a shelter and stay there until dawn. Don't try to navigate, you'll only get more lost. The nearest shelter doesn't matter. Find any shelter, even damaged ones. Get inside and wait. I'm coming for you, but it'll take time. Hayward. The radio died. Not static, just dead, like the battery had been pulled. I checked it. Full battery, but no power. The forest had gone completely silent. Oh no. I grabbed a laminated card from my pocket, but before I could speak the words, I heard something that froze my blood. Breathing. Massive, deep breathing, like something enormous filling and emptying lungs the size of houses. It came from the direction of the old growth. I ran,